This is the sixth in a series of resources on the roles of money, the federal government, and the Fed in the economy of the United States. Part 1 considers money, how it is defined, how it is measured, and how it is created. Part 2 looks at the money market and what creates demand for money. Part 3 inspects inflation and its cost to the economy. Part 4 considers fiscal policy, defining it, and its role in stabilizing the economy. Part 5 inspects the federal budget, its components, how it is funded, and what role federal deficits play in the economy. Part 6 looks at the Fed, its role, structure, and functions in the economy. The final part of the series considers monetary policy and how all the aspects of fiscal and monetary policy affect the gross domestic product. During the early 1900s, many Americans lost faith in the banking system. As such, they took their money out of savings or checking accounts, looking instead to hold onto money in the form of cash. As we saw in the resource on the money supply, this can have disastrous effects on the economy. The federal government responded by creating the Federal Reserve in 1913 to help prevent bank runs. The Federal Reserve's primary role is that of a central bank. This is the official bank of the nation that controls the supply of money in the country. The Federal Reserve also acts as a lender of last resort. This means that if local banks lose their money base and reserves, they can obtain emergency loans from the Fed to stay in business. How is the Federal Reserve structured? The nation is split into 12 districts, each with its own Federal Reserve Bank. The heads of each of those districts comprise the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, which is the true power behind the Fed. The chairperson of this Board of Governors is the principal spokesperson for the monetary policy in the U.S. We will discuss exactly what monetary policy is in the next resource. While the chairperson of the Fed is required to report to Congress, they actually make their own decisions, then report what they are doing, rather than asking for permission. One final important subdivision of the Federal Reserve is the Federal Open Market Committee. It is this committee that makes decisions on changes in the money supply. So what are the actual tasks performed by the Federal Reserve? The first, and perhaps most important, is to supply currency to the economy. That is why dollar bills say Federal Reserve Note, because they are produced and released by the Fed. The next role of the Federal Reserve is to provide a system of check collection and clearing. The funds for checks must move from bank to bank. This action is facilitated by the Fed. The Federal Reserve also holds reserves. Imagine that. It maintains the reserve balance from banks and other depository institutions like credit unions. It also regulates all local banks. The final task of the Federal Reserve is to conduct monetary policy. This is a range of actions that influence the level of real gross domestic product, at least indirectly. Monetary policy really controls the level of inflation, as we shall see in the next resource.